So, Cliff, Shiva Baby, what did you think?
Um, I must say I didn't love this film, but there are things about it which I admired, and by the end of it, I did feel it was a worthwhile watch. Given that this film has only just come out, in the newspaper I was reading a couple of days ago, there was a review of it there, and although we kind of have a rule that we don't look up anything about the film or the filmmaker before we watch the film, I, you know, I read the review which was on the page, and the one thing that review said, so this was before I'd seen it, it said it made the comment that this film is kind of something between Annie Hall and Mother, and I thought, that's a strange that's a strange comparison, but actually, at the end of it, I thought, yeah, there's kind of something in that. I can kind of see how that works. I think what I loved about this film, let's start with that, was the score, and supported by the cinematography. I thought the score was really amazing, and it reminded me something of the experience with Uncut Gems, that film that was on Netflix, with Adam Sandler, which was very similar. That kind of, the score being really, just creating kind of constant anxiety. And it is a little bit like that in Mother as well, the use of score just to, in a kind of almost a horror film type way, but you're not watching horror. This clearly wasn't a horror film, but it is like horror film score. And I thought that worked really well. And the cinematography, the closeness of the shots, the kind of handheld camera at times, the strange angles, I really liked the fact that at this Shiva there were, really trivial conversations happening, kind of gossip and trivia and, really superficial conversations. And in a way, through the whole film, that's what was happening, just really polite conversation and really trivial. But then we had these moments where through the music and through the way the film was shot, that it actually, we get these heightened moments of, anxiety and, distress and discomfort, and, and that was brilliant. And I really liked when it kind of flicked between the two, because there was once or twice when it really built up to a really, at times it was really uncomfortable to watch, I think, in a very similar way to Uncut Gems, and in a kind of brilliant way, but not it was uncomfortable. But then it suddenly would return to the kind of trivial conversation, and so I thought I really liked that. I thought that was really well done and really, really effective. I mean, obviously this is a comedy, but it feels like a caricature, and at times I questioned that. I mean, I do, we live in a time of extreme political correctness, and, that the comedy is, a lot of the comedy is in stereotypes. And, I don't have I personally don't have a problem with it, but I do wonder whether, is it okay to be using stereotypes for comedy in this way? I think it probably is, and certainly I had no objection to it. And there were times when, more and more through the film, there were times when I did laugh. It did make me smile. There was humor in this film. I think probably my problem with the caricature is I don't like caricature. I don't like kind of political cartoons, for example. I really, really don't like the images in political cartoons. And so, that's just my personal taste. Caricature is not really a comedy form that I like. So perhaps it was that. But, you know, as I say, I did laugh at several points. And so maybe the film was successful. You know, maybe this film isn't meant to be an easy ride and just a, you know, funny comedy. It's clearly not meant to be a light comedy, that's for sure. Kind of retrospectively, looking back on it, I think I'm enjoying the film more than I did when I watched it, because I'm thinking that it actually, we're quite taken on quite an emotional journey through the film. It feels like it has quite a lot of substance in it that happens in quite a short journey, really. It's a short film and it's all set in almost in real time. You know, there's no jumps in time. And so in that way, it feels like actually there's a lot of substance in this film, and there perhaps are some serious themes explored within it. I do think, though, that perhaps I'm not sure how much it goes beyond the comedy, and, you know, how much it actually explored beneath the surface of these, you know, the issues that it was raising. So I'm kind of still not sure. But, you know, maybe I'm not the demographic for this film. You know, maybe it is a kind of coming of age film. It is a New York film. It is a Jewish culture film. You know, I'm kind of a 58-year-old man in the UK. I'm not sure necessarily I'm the demographic for this film. I didn't love it, but I really admire the technical aspects of this film. Really admire it. Very much enjoyed that. I certainly wanted to finish it, and yeah, I would say it was a worthwhile watch.
Yeah, I felt pretty much identical feelings, really. I think pretty underwhelming. I'd heard a review as well, and they described it as a cross between Fleabag and Abigail's Party, and I was prepared for something a bit more like abrasive or shocking, and it was actually a really conventional, quite sweet story in the end. I was less convinced by those technical aspects you described, because Mother's a really interesting comparison, because it certainly it attains to that same level of mad escalation, with things just rapidly escalating out of control as they do in Mother. I have mixed feelings about Mother, but I think in some respects, sometimes I think it's absolutely fantastic, and other times I think it's kind of nonsense. But
oh, really? I think Mother's amazing. I really, yeah.
It's a very interesting film. I think I've seen it 2 or 3 times. I think it didn't help that my ex-girlfriend just hated it. She said it was just stupid, and so I sort of saw it with different eyes. But I felt like this film, when you get the woozy camera work, because I can't remember what's happened. Someone's found her phone or something, and we sort of telescope in on her, and it becomes very expressionistic and really kind of claustrophobic. And I just felt unconvinced by it, because although the technical aspects of the film are saying, and we have reached that pitch of unbearable tension, I was just watching it thinking, I'm not really tense. I don't really care. You know, it's not, the things that have actually happened don't really matter, you know? So I just didn't feel much at stake. But when I sort of let go of those expectations of something more shocking or unusual, and appreciated it for what it finally was, just kind of a sweet little, as you say, coming of age story, then it was quite enjoyable. I too felt a lot of the characters are pretty broad, and I didn't really buy it as such. You know, the parents who are always bickering, that felt a bit sort of self-conscious and stagey, and we've seen that so many times before. That dynamic was really superficial. I think the thing that struck me most about it actually was that, and I've realised this a couple of times recently, watching St. Francis as well. Those films are kind of comparable, I think, in sort of tone and attitude and stuff. But I realised that films about young people, like 20-somethings now, they're no longer about me. Yeah. You know, and I feel weirdly displaced. Like, you know, if a film is about the, you know, young adults now, that's not my generation anymore. Yeah. And that still feels really strange. It's a weird experience watching stuff like that and feeling kind of alienated from it. And I don't get that sense of, you know, connection or affection that I get when I watched those sorts of films when I was that age, you know, that real intimate kind of. So maybe, as you said, you know, perhaps it's a demographic thing. Perhaps perhaps, you know, one only really responds to the coming of age films that one watches when one is that age. So perhaps it just sort of missed the connection because I just can't really relate to it on that level. But it was a likable film, and I thought the final scene where she and Maya help the old woman to the car, and then the dad insists on everyone piling into the minibus. I did laugh quite a few times in that, like the last 5 minutes. So I almost wished it was more. I almost wished it played more of that, just, you know, sweet little comedy about this. Oh, and I thought the relationship between Maya and Danielle was really convincing because they really acted like two people who've known each other since they were little. Because the first thing they do to each other, they're quite spiteful, like kids, and you think they hate each other, but you realize they've just known each other forever, and telling, you know, swearing at each other just doesn't mean anything when you've known each other forever, right? And so I thought that was really nice, and I would have preferred, I think, a much quieter film that was just in that kind of mood, you know, when it did try to do that weird off-key score and the crazy camera work, and it felt off to me because the story wasn't keeping up with it. It hadn't kind of earned that for me. But a likable film, and like you, I'm glad I watched it. And 70 odd minutes, pretty impressive. Well made, well performed.
First film as well.
Yeah.
First film.
Yeah, I didn't check. Was it adapted from a play? Because it felt quite stagey, didn't it?
Did you not watch the Q&A afterwards? I kind of figure that we're allowed to watch the Q&A if it's on the movie screening. I did watch the Q&A, and she made a short film. She made a 7-minute film.
Right.
So that it came from a film she'd made. And it came from her experience of being at film school in New York with some people who were doing with some of the other students who were doing the sugar daddy thing. So that was the kind of germ of the basic idea. I mean, I think it's interesting about the comedy, isn't it? Because, you know, the premise is quite good. The sugar daddy story is quite good. And then, you know, being at this Shiva, which is a sad event, but then being able to make a lot of comedy out of the fact that, you know, her sugar daddy's there with his partner and the baby. You know, there's a lot of comedy in that with the culture that it was all set in. And like you, I laughed most at the end. I think in the end, the comedy did seduce me. I think at first I wasn't sure, you know, but I think as I probably, if I watched it again, I probably would laugh more at the beginning than I did, as you know, now that I kind of feel like I understand the film. But yeah, would I have preferred this film just to flesh out and enjoy the comedy a bit more, and not, you know, maybe it was too much of an odd mix, you know, between different genres.
And it just felt like it didn't go far enough, you know. If you're going to make a sort of biting, incisive, you know, one of those really uncomfortable, because it didn't have that kind of uncomfortable, it didn't feel that way, and it kind of should have done, really, given the situation that, you know.
Well, that's why I think it has got substance in it, but I think it possibly doesn't go deep enough. You know, it's a long time since I've seen Abigail's Party, but I think Abigail's Party is an interesting comparison because, you know, I feel with that film that the themes and the substance was much deeper. You know, this film feels like it's really shooting at being a lot more than a comedy. And having deeper themes, but it never quite gets, you know, much below the surface of the comedy.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's a film about a young person who doesn't know what she's doing with her life, right?
Yeah,
and you know, but
she's amazing, isn't she? I thought
very
acting was brilliant, and I agree. The acting between those two, between her and Maya, was very good as well. And you know, the dad did make me laugh. You know, it was the scene where he's holding the baby, and you know, it gets all tense, and you know, it was well done. It was well done.
And I quite like the scene where she she knocks that holy whatever it was off the thing and smashed it, and she's fumbling to pull the glass in, and then starts kissing the books, and her mum says, "What are you doing?"
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, I'd say worth watching for,
I think so,
not
yeah.
doesn't demand too much time.
No, and strangely, I feel more affection towards it as we talk about it than I felt I did at the time. So
That's often the case, isn't it?
weird, isn't it?
Yeah. What are we watching next then?
Next, we're watching Private Chat by Ben Hosey.
Okay, looking forward to it.